good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm Pamela Jaccarino, Editor-in-Chief of Luxe Interiors and Design. Thrilled to be here, virtually of course, to celebrate legends. I hope that everyone who's tuning in today is faring okay during these strange new times that we find ourselves in. And today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, creativity and the power of beauty to really help us through, especially these times. And, I think it can be sort of tricky. Like, do we dare discuss textiles and wallpaper and interiors with like the world in the great upside down? But I am someone who really believes now more than ever we need to be surrounded by beautiful things that really help lift our spirit. And I am so happy to have this conversation with the great designer, Mark D. Sykes, who truly makes everything more beautiful. Mark, it's really nice to be with you virtually. So welcome.
Thank you. Good to be
And, I
here.
wanted to, yeah, I wanted to kick it off. I mean, you are someone who is just inspired by so many things. Both of us and so many of us on the industry are just always on a plane and seeing new things and traveling. So I wanted to kick things off and ask, since you've been, sheltering at home, how have you managed to stay inspired? Are you inspired? And where have you turned for that inspiration these days? These past, like, what, 10 weeks?
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. And also, Legends is very important to us as a company because we are on La Cienega, actually. So it's always a wonderful event. So it's nice to participate somehow to help celebrate that wonderful event. Um, I feel like, in general, I'm feeling more creative than ever, but I think it's a process. I think when this all first happened, there was this, you know, the fear sits in and anxiety and the unknown. And I think it's a journey that you go on. And then all of a sudden, when you get used to kind of the circumstances and the new reality and the space that you're in, I think that's when creative energy starts to flow. But what I've really noticed is, you know, there's less emails, there's less of a lot going on. So your brain becomes a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more clear. And I think that in all times is when creativity, your mind starts having the space to start thinking about creative things. And, I'm fortunate to live in a place where there's beautiful weather and the opportunity to get outside. And I think there's nothing more inspiring than nature in of itself. But being at home, it's spending time at home, I've been able to go back to old books and old magazines and just, old memories of things that really truly have spurred a lot of creativity and ideas. So, I think one of the best things that has come of this is obviously this wonderful sense of like a reality check on what's important. And, also, you know, things that we really should care about. And I believe with all my heart, just like you said in the beginning, that I think beauty is this uniter and it's a healer and it's something. It's not about how much it costs or what it is. It can be a personal thing, but I do believe it brings a sense of calm in a storm. And for me, it's done that.
Yeah, I went through the same thing. It was like panic and anxiety at first, and I felt as though I couldn't really be creative. I do think it's super interesting for a lot of designers and creatives and artists that, here we are. We're not like rushing around and busy, and we're not like, you know, on airplanes, and you sort of have time to sit with yourself,
Hmm.
for better or worse, and that does spur on things. And
Hmm.
I like you too, have gone through a lot of my design books. So Mark, you truly do manage to make everything more beautiful, which is coincidentally the name of your new book. I know we're going to talk about that because I'm very interested. I know it's coming out September 1st, is it?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Solely. So we're going to talk about that because I'm interested to hear how you're going to do book signings and all of that. But Can we talk a little bit about let's just dive a little bit deeper into like the philosophy of why the pursuit of beauty is so important. I mean, I feel like it's like it has like healing properties. Don't you agree?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's you know, for me personally, the things that I love as a small child, you know, my memories of things that I was drawn to or things that I'm still drawn to today, they bring me truly a lot of happiness. And I I think the one of the most wonderful thing about becoming a designer and this process of becoming a designer is meeting or connecting with people who also feel the same way. And in some weird way, it becomes like this spiritual community of people who like, oh yeah, I think beauty is, you know, can, you know, unite and heal and guide. And, you know, it's like, oh, well, you
I
believe that too. So there is this, and I really do believe it in the simplest forms. And I think I feel so fortunate to be able to work in an industry where I can pursue beauty and creativity at all times. And I can't even imagine working in an industry or doing something that I wasn't completely passionate about. I think if your mind, you know, when you're not like working, but you're always thinking about what you're passionate about, we have that. And um, I think that's a really important thing to be able to like rely on, especially in times like this. Uh,
yeah.
so I do think and the new book kind of goes into this more of a deeper realm of beauty because beauty is very subjective. It's very
Yeah.
personal. Like, you know, what I love might be different than what you love, might be different what everyone loves. But to everyone, the things that they're inspired by are very important.
So how did you go deeper into the book? In what ways? Share give us a little sneak peek of what we're gonna
Well,
see.
you know, we've been working on it for a long time, for 4 years now, and um, you know, the first book was a huge success. So there's you know, been this kind of pressure on a little bit of like, you know, the new book. But you know, I always go back to authenticity and what I just truly love, and it's just a continuation of the beautiful story. And the first book was broken up more in color stories. This book is broken up more in styles of homes.
Okay.
Um, and in these particular styles of home, whether it's country, Mediterranean, cottage, or coastal, excuse me, um, or traditional, there are these common threads that you see throughout my design work that's more of the foundation for all of them. So there's a little bit of this, like, you know, if you love something and it works, it can work in any type of environment, any type of color story. But, you know, there's the deeper part of it is before all this happened, we were writing the book and I was writing with Catherine Evans, and you know, we were really on this spiritual journey of beauty. Of like, you know, kind of like this is deeper. You know, there's something that you feel, and this is something that, you know, is a sensory overload. It's not, you know, and we were already telling that story. And then, you know, the book text was done 4 months ago, and here we are. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a weird thing. It's like, oh my God, people are going to read the book and think I was reading the book during the COVID pandemic. But um, it's beautiful, and I'm very proud of it. I think I'm more proud that it's just a continuation of the story, and I'm really proud that Rizzoli, the publisher, really gave me free reign in regards to not only the story but the graphics and the way it was laid out. So I think, you know, I think it's gonna be great. So we're
Good.
excited
It'll
about
be another top of the stack, as you say.
it. Yeah,
So I also
yeah.
want to talk about. I want to take it all the way back to 2011, where when you started your blog about
Mhm,
everything that, as you say, authentically that you love, right? Your
mhm.
blue and white stripes. Everyone's noticed. I've got my blue and white stripes on today
Yeah,
for
you look
Mark
beautiful.
and Jackie O, and you know, the things that it's sort of like all American style. And
Mhm.
it was you know, back then for you, just this wonderful, and for all of us, quite frankly, this wonderful sort of creative outlet, Mark. And I wanted to see like what are you doing, even like aside from, you know, your from your design work, which is obviously a creative expression, it's also work, right? And there's an execution, and we've talked a lot about like you know, the logistics and operations in terms of being able to put that forth. But are there any other practical ways that your creativity has sort of manifested during the past 10 weeks? Maybe that surprised you. Is there Is there anything else that you've been doing? Some of us are like collaging our walls, a la Charlotte Moss, which is what I've one of the ways that I've been
Well,
doing it. But
my
I just
mind
want to
goes in
drill
like
into
a,
it.
my mind, obviously we have our work and we have our projects and we have a book and we have our collaborations that have all obviously the creative focus. But over the last 10 weeks, my mind has been going to the future and to ideas. We're gonna have to work differently and think differently and promote differently than we've ever done before in many ways. So I've had a zillion ideas. My team was probably like, "Oh my god!" When I came back, I was like, this. So you know, um, I think situations like this put us in a place where we have to think differently. And I think, I've always talked about like retail, and people are always like, "Oh, it's so sad that how retail shifted and changed," but that's just a part of life. In the 50s, people had stores downtown that they would go to for their dress shop or whatever, and then it became like um, you know, like department stores. And then then there were big malls, then there was online. It's just a part of the cycle.
Everything evolves. You sort of have to evolve or die, dare I say. Like,
Right.
things
But
change, and change is actually something that's extremely healthy. It's sometimes scary to go through, but I'm curious to hear what your predictions are. Like, do you have any crystal ball predictions on? I mean,
well,
you
I mean, you
came
can just
from
tell from social media, like, there'll be a lot less travel. I think people will completely work a little bit differently. I think that what's already started with social media platforms will become more enhanced. I've always said, like 10 years ago when I started the blog, you mentioned that it's like unbelievable that you unconsciously, by just putting something out there that was so authentic, you can create a brand sitting at your kitchen table. And that's going to be even more so, now. And, how people sell their products and how people sell their brands and their messages um, will be completely digitally focused. And I think in lots of ways, but there's definitely going to be something past Zoom and something past Instagram, and it's all of our jobs to figure out what that is. And I love challenges like that. I think that's beyond uh, beautiful things and timeless beauty and just things that I think are quintessential. I believe in marketing. I think that I was in marketing for years as in retail, and I think it's about storytelling, and
Yes.
the story continues in a different way, and how do you do it? So
And that's a creative pursuit in and of itself. It's sort of, you really have to think about. I mean, I think for you, it is effortless. Well, nothing's effortless if you want to be successful. So let me take that
a lot
back.
of hard work, but
I
the
understand,
work is
but
we
it's
love our work.
authentic.
Yeah,
It's who you are. It's
totally.
innately who you are, and I think that's why people are attracted to that. Um, I also wanted to, practically ask you about, the design business, and obviously, as a successful designer, you're working, all across the country and have for many years. But your team can't get out to touch and feel. And can you talk a little bit about how have you navigated through that, Mark?
Well, I think it's been pretty remarkable. When we've never been a firm that has worked from home. We always were very, very office centric and travel centric and people, people centric. But I have to say, my whole team did an unbelievable job throughout the last 3 weeks, staying super connected and putting systems in place where we, were communicating on a daily basis, and we would have follow up and um, touch points, and nothing skipped a beat. So that's kind of remarkable in of itself in a creative industry. So, but we weren't really. I was doing some concepting out, but we weren't really concepting. But the internet's amazing. I mean, if you're looking, we've schemed a couple projects with, you know, going on looking for fabrics and doing tear sheets, and like then getting samples when we can, and or having samples sent to my house. My visit in my office was sent like probably 5,000 samples to my house. So our whole like garage slash design studio was full of color stories of things. So you just work differently,
Yeah.
and you know we're doing a project in Palm Beach that we haven't even seen. It started like 4 months ago or 5 months ago, and we have completely done all the proposals, done all the scheming, had FaceTime things. And I think it's going to be one of our most remarkable projects. And we never like stepped foot there or left our quarters. And that's kind of unbelievable that we were able to not only finalize architectural plans, not only come up with all the schedules, not only present a whole home, 6,000 square foot home to a client through a digital format, have them approve it, and get everything ordered in that time frame is pretty remarkable. So,
It's in some ways it's more efficient. I mean,
well, let's hope. I mean, we'll see how it all turns out. But it was a huge unlock for me of an understanding of what you can do different, how you can do it differently. So we've lived through that, and now, granted, the particular client is lovely and wonderful and so appreciative and in many ways easy. But the bottom line is we've never would have ever approached situations similar to that. But we had to. So you learn, and then we're in the business of always being successful and creating. So you figure out how to do it.
Yeah,
So.
you adapt. I'm curious, you're doing, your projects virtually for clients. Sort of what is your take on the design industry today and sort of where we go from here? And also like design wise, talk about, do you imagine for your clients that sort of priorities will shift? And even in terms of like the interior architecture, everyone's going to be in their homes for a lot longer.
Totally. I mean, I feel like for our particular industry, and again, this is after you get over the fear and the anxiety and the stress management of managing the business, there is this kind of moment where you're kind of like, oh, well, for our industry, home, beauty, luxury, quality is going to be all super important to people because they're not going to be spending their money on or in primary residences. So they're not going to be spending their money on travel as much or clothes as much or entertaining as much or secondary or third residence. They're going to be focusing on
Sure.
their home, and not their house but their home. And that deeper feeling of what a home is, I think, is going to become more important. It's not a place where you just kind of like go sleep, put your clothes up, make a meal. It's the place you're spending all your time. So it's either going to be like people are going to appreciate their home more, or they're going to like want to redo their home because they're like, oh my God, going crazy. So I think ultimately for our industry, it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
But as anything, we have to kind of address it with empathy and, not take that for granted. But I think it's going to be great. I think there's fear there's still fear, but I think when people get past that, it's going to be.
Yeah. So you actually have a new collection, a wonderful new collection coming out with Chaddock. And, can you, how, on the other side, as someone who's got product and you want to, obviously let designers know about this and sort of push it forward, how that's got to be sort of tricky. Again, you said, you've got a great background in, you are a great marketer, you had your background in sort of visual merchandising and all of that. So, have you started to think about, what that is going to look like in terms of getting product out there and
Well,
making
we
some
started, every time we collaborate with someone, we always want to think about it differently in regards to marketing. So a long time ago, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, we were already formulating, we had already finalized the assortment and seen all the samples. So we started formalizing the story that we were telling, which started actually at the very beginning when we were sketching and concepting. So, we had already, I'm so thankful that we had already like taken all the photography, the samples. Chaddock's amazing, and I've never had an experience where everything turned out so well immediately. So we were able to not only visit samples, tweak samples, set up the complete showroom. Well, first of all, I should say people that are not familiar with, so this line of Chaddock usually is shown at High Point Market, as most furniture collections are. So that did not happen. So, and it's very rare with timelines to be able to photograph everything, to be able to get, materials out to editors early,
Yeah.
even in the best of times. So we were able to do all that. So when this happened, we had all of our materials, we had our story, the showroom was completely set up. And so then we were able to start thinking about, okay, how can we, we have a digital catalog. How can we get this out to people? Which is not the way High Point does it. So we were equipped with all the stuff to be able to actually do it differently. So we were able to, create a huge email distribution. We were able to invite people to a presentation that we did on Zoom. We were able to get the catalog to everyone. Both of my website and Chadek's website are up with all the product and all the tear sheets. We were able to land some amazing press, and all that kind of was in the works prior to this. So
Yeah, good.
we believe strongly that this could change the way a lot of people do it, because we're launching a furniture collection digitally that is not the norm for High Point. And so far it's been a huge success. So
Good. Are you
uh,
over the Zoom? Or are you loving the Zoom? What's your take on the Zoom?
uh, well, everything's either Zoom or Instagram Live now, so it's a lot, but I mean, it's also a great way to connect. So I think,
Yeah.
I wish I would have bought stock in Zoom, and then, but
I feel like, don't you feel like, to me, it's so funny when people's like, we're doing a phone call. I'm like, that's like, so last decade.
yeah.
The phone call and the handshake are going to be a thing of the past, and it's
Well,
going to be.
we have a very young team, and they all knew about Zoom immediately. So we were Zooming as a team kind of immediately on a weekly basis, and then individually. So I think it's great. I mean, it feels like you're in the room here. So I think that's great. I don't know what
Yeah.
the audience, if they feel the same way, but I think it's great.
I
You
do
know?
too. I like a limited
Zooming.
number of Zooms on the schedule. I think if you get too many in one day, I think I had one too many yesterday, and it was a little over. Because seriously, I am like at my heart an introvert. I know people find that hard to believe because I do love to chat with people, but for introverts, the Zoom is a little bit.
Well, I also think when you're Zooming, you're staying focused and you're really on topic and task. I think a lot of times on conference calls, people can get super distracted
Yeah,
and
you can
start
get checked
multitasking,
out.
doing other things. But in Zoom,
It
like,
keeps you real. The Zoom keeps you real.
yeah, yeah.
You can't
Yeah,
like
and you
look
gotta
down
like
at your
actually look a
phone.
little decent, so you have to like take a shower in the morning. You know, you know, put on something like decent. But
At least, yeah, it's like you gotta have a party at the top, and what is it like, pajamas on the
yeah,
bottom?
I don't need to. Yeah, I don't. You don't need to know what's happening below. But it's really great.
I'm embracing my ripped jeans anyway. So, what else have you, like, any decorating design up sessions, or you always have a muse, Mark, right? And I know you've got your standard muses, but I wonder, in during COVID, oh, there's big thunder and lightning storm outside my window here. Any muses or any new discoveries in the Mark Sykes world?
Well,
That
I I love Instagram. I think it's just this amazing platform to connect with people and to find images and inspire. So I really pushed myself over this time to like explore new Instagram accounts, because I've never been the type that like just follow, I really, and I've been so inspired by, and I'm inspired by the past, like I love the past and the timeless interiors of, Renzo Monardino and, Billy Baldwin and, all that. And to be able to connect with people on Instagram that are also fascinated with that time period, has been really cool. So I know that's like like an obvious response, but that's truly, I have been so inspired by like new accounts that I've been like looking at and following, and also the authenticity of the accounts. I mean, I've always been a person where I'm obsessed with certain things, and I really don't care if other people aren't. You can unfollow me, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to keep posting about the things I love, and
yeah,
I've never allowed that filter to go through my head as like, well, what do people think? Like I'm always like, I don't care. I don't really care.
well, it's about staying true. I mean,
Yeah, well, I mean,
your
because
soul
it's
too.
yeah, and and also being able to connect with other people who feel the same way in their own world. So that's been fun.
Good.
And really inspiring. So I think that's one way. And the other way is I've gone back to old books and magazines on a daily basis. Like I have, an archive of probably, I don't know, the past 30 years of every shelter/fashion magazine imaginable.
Yes,
Like
we have
library.
seen it in your guest room. That's so
Yeah,
fabulous.
we keep building bookshelves of bookshelves for them. And so I've gone back to all of them. And, when I started my blog, that was really first the formation of the imagery that we're using on the blog, or some of the storytelling, and the post-its are still there. We had a peak post-it for people. a green post-it for places and a blue post-it for things. And it was so fun to go back and like look at all that. And that was my original inspiration for when I was doing my blog, Chic People, Glamorous Space, Stylish Things. And that's where I started with, you know, what type of stories I wanted to tell. I went through every magazine. I put a post-it by each one of the category for ideas for
I love
stories.
the organization.
Yeah, so I went back to that just kind of out of fun, and it just was so, things you've already seen before could be so inspiring.
Good. Well, I know I have one last question for you. I'm not quite sure how we're doing. I think through this chat, I'm going to get any questions that you have. So if anyone has questions, I think Tamara's going to get them to me somehow psychically. I'm not sure. Um, but my last question for you, Mark, before we wrap it up or take questions from the audience is, how are you doing your book tour? Right there, your book's coming out, and you know, so many designer books, we want to come and see you and you sign it for us. And so can you
Well, we're
tell us
doing,
a
you
little
know,
about that?
we always, even before this, we would have always wanted to approach our book differently. I think one of the reasons our first book was such a huge success is that we had a social media platform or hashtag that kind of created a wave of something, and that people started top of the stack. They started taking pictures. They started posting it. You know, we were the first to kind of like put our book cover, you know, on all of our social media platforms to like for recognition. We were one of the first to probably do a whole gifting charitable thing over the holidays with our book. So I'm proud to say I think we were the first to kind of do a lot of book promotion like that. It was very successful. So we wanted to approach this one completely different anyway. So, you know, we have a lot of ideas. We're already doing, you know, pre-order a signed book and we'll ship it to you. It's just unbelievable the numbers that we're getting. So we're actually now contemplating this whole presentation just for these people who have received a book, whether it's Zoom or whatever it might be, but like almost creating like a little bit of a book club where you're building relationships with these people that are a part of this process. So that's one thing. In regards to all the book signings that were already set up for and all the antique shows, who knows what will happen with that, but we will come up with other ways of supporting the charity organization, of, you know, getting the book out there. And, you know, that's the plan. So, you know,
Someone's asking, what's the title of the new book? It's More Beautiful, correct? Is that the name
more
of it?
beautiful. Yeah.
More Beautiful. Okay, I have one more question. You're back. It's so funny how, right, we're all like watching people on TV and Zoom. I think Martin talked about this. He was funny earlier. He was talking about he's fascinated by people's hideous homes. Newscasters. So I'm just voting LCDQ. Martin, I don't know if you're watching. I think I sent you a message that Martin should host a program, Totally Hideous Homes, and that would be funny. But I'm fascinated by your background, Mark. Like, what is happening behind you? Like, I'm gonna like dive into the Mark Sykes fabrics behind you. Is this a design scheme behind you?
Yeah, this is we have a design studio that I'm in right now, and they have like 4 major walls, and they're usually a concepting project or a house that we're working on all the walls. So this is a project that we're working on in Little Rock, Arkansas, that we've been working on for about a year now, and we're about to be doing a creative presentation. So we always start with a fabric and a color and a palette meeting. So that's what this is. And we have all the tear sheets for the furniture. That's in another part of but it's a pretty large house. So this is the beginning of, or the middle of concepting. So we put things up, and I like to live with it for a period of time where I can take things down, add things, and then it feels like it's in a really good place. And then we have on the behind, not on the wall, but below are all the options. So every room has like 2 or 3 different color story options or different fabric options. So that's kind of where we start. So that's what's on the wall there.
Well, I love to see the inner workings of your creativity.
Yeah,
And it's been so nice to see you virtually,
yeah,
Mark.
you too.
I
Thank
know.
you.
We're so excited for your book to come out. I think it's going to bring us all joy. I'm just saying, like, I think you should have a virtual book club. That would be really fun once it comes out, and we can maybe all chat about it. I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah.
And thanks, legends. We miss being out on La Cienega and seeing everybody on the street. We hope that we're going to be there next year. But until then, giving a kiss.
Thank you, everyone.
And thanks so much. And
Bye.
the rest of the programming, enjoy.